In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the upper radiator hose on this Toyota 4Runner. Let's get started. If you look in through the passenger side wheel well between the frame and this lower skid plate here, you'll see the petcock for the radiator drain right here. It's this plastic one. You're going to want to spin it counterclockwise to loosen it up. Make sure you have a collection bucket underneath because fluid will start coming out. I'm trying to do this through the little access hole so you can actually see what's happening, but typically you would stick your hand right through here. Don't pull it all the way out, just a little bit, just enough so the fluid can drain without actually making a mess and splashing everywhere. Once you turn it enough, that plug actually has a hole in it so it can direct the fluid right through the access port in the skid shield. So we'll just let it drain at this point until it's done. Now let's cap this off since it's pretty much done draining. I don't want it to keep making a mess here, so I'm gonna tighten it up, snug it, and make sure it's ready for when we add coolant. Make sure it's nice and tight. At the top of the radiator, let's disconnect the hose clamp that holds the upper radiator hose connected to it. Use either a Phillips head screwdriver or an 8mm socket. Loosen it up. Now, because I have a worm clamp here, or a screw clamp, however you want to call it, this is what I'm using, but typically you would have the kind that you squeeze with some pliers. Move it out of the way, give it a wiggle, pop it right off. Let's do the same right where it connects to the engine block over here. It should be one of those squeeze clamps, but this one is not. It's been replaced. So I'm just going to loosen this up and do the same exact thing. Move the clamp, give it a couple twists to break it free, and pull the hose right out of the way and set it aside. Now let's get the hose back on the engine side. Make sure you have a clamp on here, and then we'll re-secure it onto the radiator side as well. Let's tighten up the clamps. Once they get snug and they start squishing the hose, don't go more than a full turn because you can strip them out. And once these strip out, well, you can't use them, you have to replace them. They won't hold under pressure anymore. So right about there. Let's do the same to this one. Perfect. Now let's fill the cooling system. Open up the radiator cap, set it aside, and use the appropriate type of coolant. If you're unsure of what to use, refer to your owner's manual, and just fill it up until you can see that the radiator is full all the way to the top. There we go. Once the radiator has been completely filled, cap this off. Move over to your overflow tank, pull this hose out with the cap, set it aside, and add the rest of your coolant in here. Make sure it's about halfway full. Any more than that, and it could expand too much, the coolant will come in here as it heats up so that it doesn't overflow from the radiator. This is basically the overflow from it. So if you put too much in, it'll actually start coming out. And if it's too little, it won't have enough to pull in as it needs to as it self-bleeds. Once you've added enough coolant here, cap this off, make sure it clicks on. And now with the coolant filled up, let's turn on the engine and bleed the system. Inside the vehicle, make sure that your temperature gauge is all the way up. Make it blow on the vents so you can actually feel the heat. Blower on low, you don't want it too high because it'll cool down too fast and it'll take too long for the engine to warm up. You want the AC off, and as it runs and warms up, pay attention to your temperature gauge and make sure it doesn't go past the halfway mark. Obviously, if it's getting up to the red in the overheating zone, shut it off, let it cool down. It's most likely an air pocket, and then start it again. And once you've completed that process, you're done. You can take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.